Well, you mentioned the gaming industry, right? Obviously, that's going through its own problems at the moment, and a lot of the things that you have exposed with the D files about the DEI, the ESG stuff, the constant checklists, and the inclusion quotas that they have to meet. That's everywhere within the gaming industry as well, and it's all come to light in the past couple of weeks with the whole Sweet Baby Inc. stuff. To the point where even Elon Musk has taken time out of launching space rockets and stuff to weigh in on this. And I just love the fact that he is personally invested in this and he weighed in on this whole thing. Yeah, I mean, he just takes no prisoners with all this stuff. And it's great to see, I suppose, because, when all this came to light, maybe 10 years ago, that's when the whole Gamergate thing was really lit. Twitter was a very different place, and it was very friendly to video game journalists who could squash all of this stuff, and it's not anymore, partly because of him. And it's a very different environment, and I think the landscape of this whole conflict, I guess, has changed quite a bit as a result. But you can always count on the journalists to strike back with dumb articles, and IGN obliged us with this. They had something to say about Resident Evil 5 getting remade. It was amazing.
I saw this.
They got absolutely dragged for it. They're saying that Resident Evil 5 is a game that can't be remade now. It has to be rewritten. Now, it's interesting because, weirdly, the first couple of paragraphs of the article does actually make some half-decent points. That it indulged the sort of over-the-shoulder third-person combat mechanic, cover-based shooter thing way too much. It was just the thing that was really prevalent at the time in gaming, and the Resident Evil series went in hard on it. So I can kind of get behind that. That's criticism of the game mechanics and stuff. But obviously, they couldn't help themselves. They had to move on to the story and the setting, and they had this to say. Set in a fictional West African country, Resident Evil 5's primary antagonists are black people.
No shit.
Who would have thought that your main opponents in an African country would be black? Anyway, yes, technically it's the Ouroboros virus that protagonist Chris Redfield.
Like a technicality that they're fucking monsters.
They're undead zombie monsters. But the parasite's host is depicted as a nation of mobs and primitives who are violent even before their infection, which is a total misrepresentation of the plot. They've already been infected by the time you show up.
Yeah.
Intentionally or not, Resident Evil 5 positions Africa as the Dark Continent, an uncivilized world harboring a diseased population that needs gunning down via Western intervention in the name of global security. This insensitive treatment of people of color was hotly debated even as early as Resident Evil 5's debut trailer.
It's true.
Which is interesting because IGN themselves gave it 9 out of 10 and called it excellent.
They did. They sure did. Yeah.
You played yourselves, IGN. You played yourselves. It was a great
co-op game. Come on.
It was. No, it was. I loved it. I loved it back in the day. Now I couldn't play it now because I never was a big fan of the Gears of War. And when Gears of War started taking over the damn world, every single game became the over-the-shoulder game. And so I see what they're saying there. But to say that we're surprised that there's black people in a continent, or at least a part of a continent that's predominantly black, is hilarious to me. It's almost like saying Resident Evil 9 is going to be set in rural Alabama and being angry that everybody's a white meth head.
It's hilarious as well. Like, they seem to have no ethical problem with gunning down the Ganados in Resident Evil 4, which are all white people.
Well, are Spanish people even human?
Yeah,
come on.
Well, you heard it from Mueller first, you know.
I asked a question.
Didn't make a statement. Yeah, can't get me. But
makes you wonder,
the same point though. It's like, why is it so acceptable to do that? But like this is just like a crime against humanity, and it's great because one of the voice actors from the game actually had a great thing to say about it. I'll just bring his little clip up. It's brilliant. It just destroys the whole narrative.
In Africa, it's been in Antarctica. It's been, I think, in Spain. It's been in the Midwest. It wasn't racist.
Oh, why is it stopped?
It wasn't racist then. Why
are you stopping?
Damn internet.
Story of my life.
Yeah, it might be the internet actually. It could be slightly so. I'll try again.
Deal with him, Sam.
Racist then.
I know who that guy is. He's actually a really cool actor who also has played in the mocap for the legendary Godzilla films.
Really?
Oh, very nice.
Nice.
I saw him at Monster Palooza. just give a speech and talk about mocap and whatnot. So blame him for the running Godzilla. I don't know. I don't know if he worked on the new one. Godzilla X Kong looks god awful.
Oh god, yeah. Well, anyway, the point that he was making there was like it wasn't racist in those games, and it's not racist here. Just have fun and enjoy the game, and stop like getting offended by everything.
Yeah.
That was just parting sentiments, and he's 100% correct about that. That is, it's just one of those things that becomes another thing to posture over. It becomes another thing for gaming journalists to get mad about, and it's just another example of how they're completely irrelevant and they're completely out of touch with their own audience, as they have been for years now.
Well, think about it this way. So we talked about this where, Russell T. Davies tells on himself for how he sees people that are disabled. Like, no one was thinking Davros was evil because he was in the military. He was just evil because he was evil. And this is the same thing. The journalist says a really interesting sentence at the end of his little spiel. He's like, they portray this as basically a war-torn, shitty Western African country that deserves to be gunned down by Western intervention. Who is saying that people in Africa deserve to be gunned down? No one said that except for the person writing this article. They're telling on themselves. They have a weird subconscious place where they're like, why do these people want to gun down all these? No one does. You are just thinking that without anybody intervening, which kind of makes you sound like you're a psycho. I just want to kill the zombies with things come out their face.
At best, it's the most bad faith interpretation of what the game's actually doing, which is these people are victims of like a horrendous bioterrorism act, and yes, you have to fight them because you've got no option but to do that. Just like in every other Resident Evil game, that's just the nature of the game. It's not that like you're meant to glory in it. You're not meant to, enjoy what you're doing. It's a survival horror game. That's the point of it.
And Drinking, you played it. I know, like I'm pretty sure Muller did, maybe Camelot. Like, so what's the alternative? You sit there and you have like what, white zombies in an African country. Then you complain about there's no African representation.
Yeah,
it's weird because I almost feel like they would be happy if the protagonist was black. Yeah. Then they would say it's totally acceptable to be gunning down all these black people because it's a black person doing it. I think that would be their mentality.
Yeah. But then they had Shiva. Shiva was teaming up with Chris, so that it was the representation.
There you go. They did it. Or you could have just introduced a new character like Lamar Redfield, like a half brother. That'd have been great.
Yeah,
but even more buff.
I remember when the game came out too. Like the big controversy was they were pissed off that the zombies had African spears and African garbs and tribes. I'm like, so they're using authentic African tribes, and you're mad about that? Do you expect people in 105-degree weather to be wearing a snowsuit?
Yeah,
I'm curious about that. You're mad because African people are wearing African garb. Okay, do you want me to have like khakis on? I don't understand what you're pissed off about.
And we completely ignored the fact that he punched the damn boulder. That was more the thing that I was pissed at.
That's why it's my favorite game of the series.
Yeah, he just punches
again. It's funny how that's even become such. Obviously, it has become like the meme of all memes with Resident Evil. But even then, he's not punching the boulder to fight it or like punching it off a cliff or anything. It's just like he's so frustrated that he can't shift this thing that he's like punching it out of frustration. Like that's all it is. It's still a dumb scene. Like don't get me wrong,
but it's awesome.
It's awesome, man.
It's so jacked.
I feel like 30-inch biceps too, man.
I know.
But their whole solution to it is just erasure, right? Just completely erase it. Don't see it. To gentrify it. Don't have any real setting. It's utterly ridiculous. Like even like I'm sure we all remember recent history with food brands like Land O'Lakes. Well, we can't have an Indian woman on the cover of a butter brand on the packaging, or Uncle Ben's rice, or
Aunt Jemima,
Aunt Jemima syrup, and the families of those icons got money. It's ridiculous, and it's like even the thing with the the Washington Redskins, right? I mean, that one's a little borderline for me, but like the Chiefs, right? There was a controversy with the Chiefs recently, which that media company that wrote that terrible story about that kid.
Oh, that one backfired pretty bad, didn't it?
Yeah.
They just got all fired. Yeah.
It all ties into the shirt that I'm wearing. If you can sort of get this look.
Caucasians.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
What would you think about this if I wore this? I'm like, I think it's cool. I want one actually.
I know.
Yeah. The issue is, man, is these people that kind of occupy this space They want to choose when they see people of color. And they take people out of all these like representation roles, Atlanta Lakes, Aunt Jemima, stuff like that. But when it comes to, let's say, a rural, undisturbed village in Rings of Power, somehow everybody's a different race. It doesn't make any sense. It's like it's like, what do you want? And it goes all the way back full circle to the meme that Drinker brought up. There is no winning. Who are you even trying to appeal to anymore? Because there's always going to be someone mad. And I think the best course of action, which is what we're seeing now with indie films, is to just make a good film and just don't care. We don't just ignore all the yelling pink-haired ladies on Twitter that's going to be mad about everything.
Yeah, that's always fun part. And who's offended? Like Chris was mentioned, watching Redskins. I'm in New York State. My father was on a New York State reservation. Every native I knew that went to middle school, everybody had a Redskins jacket on. They loved it.
They love that shit.
I've never met in even 2024 a Native American in New York State who was pissed off by a Land O'Lakes or a Redskins jersey.
White woman.
It's
a white woman.
How many black people were playing Resident Evil 5 and were really pissed off about that game? They just want to shoot zombies.
They loved it.
I guarantee it was some white dude. Yeah, come on. The whole white guilt thing. Really?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.